Today in Luther's Kitchen, we're making blackberry pie, and the key to any great pie is in the crust. And the key to making a great pie crust is having super cold ingredients. So I'm starting with super cold unsalted butter that I'm trying not to handle too much, and I was cutting it into small pieces. And I also have some super cold flour that I'm adding to a bowl, and I'm gonna add some kosher salt to that. Some people put in a little bit of sugar into their pie dough. I typically don't. I'm just gonna add those super cold cubes of butter in, and using a pastry cutter, I'm gonna cut the butter in so that all of the butter pieces are cut in half and they are covered in flour. Now it's time to add super cold water, ice cold water. And whenever I'm making dough, I'm very aware of the fact that the recipe may not take all of the water that's written. It depends on the humidity, where I am versus whoever wrote the recipe. Could be how I measured out the flour. So in this case, I always start a little shy of what the recipe calls for because I may not need all of that liquid. And once I put too much liquid in, I can't take it away. So I'm just working it in with my hands, trying not to overtouch the dough. I don't want to melt the butter, but when it feels like it's coming together and there's less crumbs at the bottom of the bowl, I know that my dough is ready to form into a disc so that I can get it chilling in the refrigerator. While my dough is chilling, and it's gonna take a couple hours at least before I can roll it out, I'm gonna make my filling. So I'm using some fresh lemon zest, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of lemon juice, couple teaspoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice. I'm also gonna add in some sugar, and it really depends on the sweetness of your blackberries, so you should taste them first. Mine are pretty sweet, so I'm just putting in a little bit of sugar. And then I'm going to put in blackberries, and really the more blackberries you have, the better for this pie. That was cinnamon too. So 5 to 6 cups of blackberries is a lot, but they shrink down inside the oven when they're baking. So you really want to make sure you've got between 5 to 6 cups. Get everything tossed really well. The lemon juice is going to help dissolve the sugar, and it's also going to help to start breaking up the blackberries. And I just kind of let those sit while I'm rolling out my dough. I'm going to cut the dough in half because I'm making a double crust pie. So I usually start without flour on the work surface. Sometimes I don't need it, but in a few seconds you're going to see me add some flour because I don't want the dough to stick to the counter. If it sticks, then I can't get it up and put it in the pie pan. I also like to use that bench scraper to just make sure that my dough is not sticking to the counter and to help pry it off the counter if necessary. Now that the bottom crust is rolled out, I'm going to use the rolling pin to carefully place it inside my pie plate. And I'm using my hands and fingers to press the dough in against the sides and over the top. It's really important that you have some hanging over the top because you're going to need that for your top layer. There are parts that are going to be super doughy heavy, and for those areas you should trim around because you don't want to have inches of dough hanging off the sides of your pie plate. Now I'm going to roll out what's going to be the top part, and this is a lattice pie, so I'm going to be cutting this into strips so that I can attach it across the top of the pie. One last ingredient that I'm going to add to the berry mixture is some cornstarch, just so that when the liquid is released in the oven, it doesn't make my crust too soggy. All of the berry mixture is going to go into the pie dish, and I'm just moistening the edges with water so that I can attach the strips to create my really pretty lattice top. So the first layer is always the easiest because everything is the same. You just put your strips across. The second layer is where you have to weave it, and you have to go under, over, under, over. I tried to make some kind of decorative crimping action around the edge of the pie. It's okay, it's not my best, but it looks decent. Now this bakes 425 degrees for about 20 minutes, and I'm putting it on a baking sheet pan that has foil so that if juices run, it doesn't make a mess in the oven. I then lowered the oven to 350 degrees for another 35 to 45 minutes until the crust is nice golden brown. It's really important you let it cool fully before you start slicing into it and enjoy. With vanilla ice cream, this pie is amazing. For this recipe and more, visit myclasscancook.com.